what happens, and we've put, unfortunately, a lot of fathers have put mothers in horrible positions where they're not suited to be that disciplinarian at times because they can't. There comes a point with every boy, especially, where they realize, oh, my mom can't hurt me if she wanted to. If your mom comes at you with a belt, it's like, you can't hurt me. And so they tend to take over. They tend to take over that way. I'm the boss. And you can't have that because they're not. They're not mentally prepared to be the boss. They're not mentally prepared to make the right choices in life. And so the one thing that we see with kids that get into what we call combat sports, be it wrestling, be it boxing, be it jiu-jitsu and grappling tournaments, we see that they understand that, oh, there's always somebody out there that is the guy that can beat you, that is the one that can put you in your place. And so they start to learn that, hey, yeah, I'm good at this, but I have to give respect to everyone because that next person can be the one that can put me in my place. And so that's what a father does. And we need fathers to start stepping up. We need as many male role models, good role models, as we can get, because we have done a complete disservice to our youth in not being there for them when they need us.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I harp on it so much because I just think it's what in my opinion, it's the number one social issue we have in our country. I know we're trying to solve all these other social issues, but if we don't get to the core of this, which I think is the family unit, the fatherless crisis, I think we're just going to be running around in circles.
No, you're absolutely right.
What's doing, everybody? I'm Alec Lace. Thank you for watching First Class Fatherhood. Today's guest on the podcast is Big John McCarthy. Big John is a legendary MMA referee. He reffed just about every fight in the UFC, from UFC 2 right through UFC 77. He's been a 3-time Ref of the Year. He's reffed all over the globe, including K1 in Japan, Strikeforce. He is a former police officer with the LAPD. He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu himself, and of course, a first-class father all the way. I'm honored to have him on the podcast today. Get down there, smack the subscribe button, tap that like, and let's jump into it right now with Big John McCarthy on First Class Fatherhood.
Joining me now, First Class Father, Big John McCarthy. Welcome to First Class Fatherhood.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
All right, let's start right here. How many kids do you have? How old are they?
Oh, my God. I got 3 kids. They are 35, 32 now. Well, excuse me. She's 31 until 2 days from now. She turns 32, and then 28, almost 29.
Very cool. Yeah, what kind of sports or activities were they into growing up?
Oh my God, that's, just about everything. They did everything that you could think about. My oldest son was big into football. Obviously, skateboarding was huge at the time. He did that all the time. Those were his 2 real things. Then he got into jiu-jitsu because of what I did and stuff, and he enjoyed the jiu-jitsu and the MMA. My daughter was big into volleyball. That was the sport she loved. She kind of got into the fighting thing a little bit, but really liked the volleyball. And then my youngest son really didn't like sports that much. He liked everything about sports, but God knows he didn't want to sweat too much. The kid could throw a baseball 100 miles an hour. He could run like the wind, and he hated doing everything. So he was my one child that I just was like, okay, if it wasn't for him, I would say parenting is easy. He was my one that just maybe it's all this gray. He's the one that gave it to me.
Good stuff. Well, you mentioned MMA there. If you could, John, please just take a minute to hit my listeners with a little bit more about your background and what you do.
Well, my background is, I started off as a police officer in Los Angeles, and I grew up with a dad that was big into sports and big into combat sports, and then kind of, got myself associated with a family called the Gracies and was learning jiu-jitsu from them. And then they started this thing that ended up being called the Ultimate Fighting Championship, and I was part of that, and then I was part of the world of MMA and being an official and coming up with the rules and doing all kinds of things through that sport. So I'm still involved in it today. I'm a color commentator for Bellator MMA, which is seen on Showtime. So I have a good time.
Yeah, you're largely responsible for so much of the success for Ultimate Fighting, MMA over the years here. So take me back then to the beginning of your fatherhood journey. I know you said in the mid-30s there. About how old would you say you were when you became a dad, and how did that experience change your perspective on life?
I think I was 24. I was young when I had my first son, but it's funny because you have no concept of, what being a dad's going to be like, or, having a child. And I'll never forget. It's as clear as anything that I can remember. When my first son was born, they took him and they put him on this table that had this heating thing over it and stuff, and they were weighing him and stuff. And I walked over. They said, you can be near him. And I put my hand out, and he grabbed a hold of my finger, my little finger, and he had this little tiny hand. And I know this is a horrible thing to say, but it was actually what went through my mind was, hey, my God, I'm instantly in love. And if a 4-year-old tried to hurt him, I would punch a 4-year-old in the mouth right now. That's a horrible thing to say, but that was the feeling I had. No one better try to hurt this, because this is mine and I will protect it. And that was just the way I felt. And I felt instantly in love with each kid that I had. So.
Yeah, very well said, John. And jumping in, I know you mentioned I've had Renzo and Rickson Gracie on the podcast here. MMA and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has really just exploded. It's so popular now. I know a lot of parents are enrolling their kids in it. So what could you say to the parents that are on the fence there? Why should they enroll their kids in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
I'm going to tell you straight. Let me just say this first up. Look, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu changed my life. And I had a good life. I'm not saying I didn't, but it changed my perspective on things. It changed, the way I looked at everything. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for your kids will do something for them, because it will give them a confidence. And confidence is key in growing up, because it is hard for kids to grow up in this world, especially today with social media and everything that's just coming at them from all these different angles. It's the ability not to do something. Because there's always going to be, I don't care who you are. People sit there and say, I was bullied and things like that. Everybody was bullied. There's always going to be that person that you could say they tried to dominate you in a certain way, tried to hurt your feelings, tried to hurt you physically. What the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu will do for your kid, first off, it will teach them respect. It will teach them honor. It will teach them that working hard can make things happen for them, that they can achieve things through hard work. And the other thing is, it will give them that confidence that if somebody does try to do something to them, to one of their classmates, to one of their, siblings, they can actually do something that can control that person. They don't have to hurt the person, but they can control that person and make them stop. And that's a great builder for confidence, as far as going through life knowing I don't have to hurt you, but if I want to, I can do it if you're trying to hurt me. And we don't want that to happen, but that is important for the growth of any child, be it boy, girl, does not matter. They all need that confidence, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gives them that.
Yeah, wow, very well said, John. And speaking of Renzo Gracie, I know when I had him on here, he was talking about bringing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as a mandatory training in the police departments across America, and I know that's big with him. And I know you as a former cop, right now it's a difficult time for police officers in America here. We have the whole defund the police movement. We've seen everything going on with the rioting through last year. So what kind of advice do you have maybe for the parents out there whose kids are just about to enter a career in law enforcement?
Well, the first thing I would tell them, I train police officers and I train them in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because there are places that, it has become mandatory. But he's right. It should become mandatory throughout the United States with every law enforcement agency. You should have to attain a certain level, because what we do with police officers, we put them through a police academy and we give them this much. We give them a little bit, and a little bit of knowledge is good, but it's not enough. And I tell every police officer out there, you have the ability to go and to train. If you want to be a professional, if you want to be someone that doesn't have to worry about the situations that most police officers worry about. Most police officers don't worry about writing the report or doing all those things, or they worry about that instance where someone tries to actually physically confront them, physically try to, put them in a bad position to harm them. When you have that confidence that, hey, I can deal with this, that's when you become a professional. And it is your job. It is your responsibility. It's like life insurance. You're just putting money in. Every time you go to that class, you're putting money in that life insurance, because that's what's going to get you home. if you put the time in to become that professional, it will pay off somewhere in the end, and you'll be glad you did it.
Wow, really great stuff, John. And let me pull it back into you as a dad here for a minute. I know, obviously, you've been around the sport your whole life, and discipline is a big part of this. What type of disciplinarian were you as a dad with the kids growing up, and is that different than the discipline style that you grew up with?
Yeah, it's so funny because my kids look and go, "Man, you were hard." And my dad, I joke about it because I love him. He was my hero. But I always said he was a little bit right of Attila the Hun, and he was very hard, and things, you had to be in line with stuff. And I thought I was much easier, and I was, I was stern as far as looks. And my kids would respond. My daughter, if you ask my daughter, did your father ever spank you? I didn't have to. I could give her a look, and she would start crying because of the look I would give her because, hey, you're not doing the right thing. What did I tell you to do? And I was a disciplinarian, but I was a disciplinarian with love. I always made sure that my kids understood every time I grabbed a hold of them, I hugged them, I kissed them, I told them how much I loved them, because that's important. A kid knows that you are the person that they can come to. I told my kids, early on, hey, if you ever have a question about anything, I will tell you the truth. And I did that. In that I'm not going to lie to you. I want you to know, you're going to hear all kinds of things from your friends and everything. I want you to know you can come to me and I will tell you the truth, be it good or bad. I'll tell you what you want to know. I'll just do it in a smooth fashion, I hope. But I was a disciplinarian, but it wasn't to the point where I was, people could say that I was spanking my kids. No, I never really had to do that. It was more, if they didn't do something I liked, we went out and we did something that was hard work that they didn't want to do to make it to where they go, I didn't want to do that again.
Yeah, very well said, John. And bringing that in, I talk on this show all the time about the fatherless crisis that we have going on with so many kids growing up without a dad or a father figure in their life. And without that type of discipline from the father, it's creating a lot of devastating results throughout our society. So I would imagine, I've had like Teddy Atlas on here, Buster Douglas, who owns a gym, and they say a lot of the fighters that they see coming in are coming from fatherless households, and single moms are bringing them to places like this to get that type of positive father role model. And my question for you, being around fighters for your whole life here, do you see a noticing change of dads? And first of all, I would like to know if that's true, if you've seen that from fatherless dads coming into the UFC. But do you notice a change in the fighters who would come in as single guys and then become dads along the way? Is there a noticeable change in those fighters after they go through that experience?
Absolutely. What happens, and we've put, unfortunately, a lot of fathers have put mothers in horrible positions where they're not suited to be that disciplinarian at times because they can't. There comes a point with every boy, especially, where they realize, oh, my mom can't hurt me if she wanted to. If your mom comes at you with a belt, it's like, you can't hurt me. And so they tend to take over. They tend to take over that way. I'm the boss. And you can't have that because they're not mentally prepared to be the boss. They're not mentally prepared to make the right choices in life. And so the one thing that we see with kids that get into what we call combat sports, be it wrestling, be it boxing, be it jiu-jitsu and grappling tournaments, we see that they understand that, there's always somebody out there that is the guy that can beat you, that is the one that can put you in your place. And so they start to learn that, hey, yeah, I'm good at this, but I have to give respect to everyone because that next person can be the one that can put me in my place. And so that's what a father does. And we need fathers to start stepping up. We need as many male role models, good role models, as we can get, because we have done a complete disservice to our youth in not being there for them when they need us.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I harp on it so much because I just think it's what in my opinion, it's the number one social issue we have in our country. I know we're trying to solve all these other social issues, but if we don't get to the core of this, which I think is the family unit, the fatherless crisis, I think we're just going to be running around in circles.
No, you're absolutely right. If there's so many elements to it, but we have got to get dads back in place and being part of their kids' lives, being a person that is there for them to respond to, a person that is there, I see it all the time. When I was coaching kids, I would see fathers that obviously they were an athlete when they were younger, but they didn't attain that level that, they wanted to, or something happened. And then they kind of try to live it through their kids. And I said, hey, don't be the guy who's pushing your kid to the point where they don't like it. Your job's to be their cheerleader. My job's to be their coach. I'll be the bad guy. You be the good guy. It's always not about do they win or lose. That doesn't matter. What matters is, did they give the best that they could give in that particular moment? As long as they did the best that they can do, you can't ask for anything more. There's always going to be that person that can beat them. And so we need to get, everyone in line and back to where we have mothers and fathers, because they're both absolutely just as important, in the bringing up and the raising of children.
Yeah, right on with that, John. And one thing that I have 4 kids myself. My youngest is my only daughter. She's only 7 years old now. So I'm in no hurry to get to the point where she gets old enough to start hitting that scene of the teenage years and the dating and all that stuff. You've been there and done all this stuff. So what kind of advice, or how did you handle it when your kids became old enough to start hitting that dating scene?
I will tell you this. I tell everyone, I honestly believe, I believe it's easier to grow up as a boy than it is a girl in today's, times. And it's because girls are like a roller coaster. It's different when you're a boy, especially when you hit, that, teenage years and you're getting into high school. You're either going to be the kid that's the athlete, or you're the kid that is the more going towards books and maybe drama and maybe, car class and things like that. But girls are, all over the place about who they date and, the cheerleading squad or the drill team or whatever it is. But they're mean. Girls are a lot meaner, because boys do end up getting into altercations and it's over. Girls don't do that. They pick at each other. Sometimes they'll get into the altercation. But, I always tell fathers, look, when your daughter hits, about 13, she's going to lose her mind. And everything that you say is wrong. You're the dumbest person there is. You know nothing because you don't understand them. And I go, you honestly kind of don't. You know what's right for them. You know what's best for them. But, they have so many things coming at them. Hormones are changing and the emotions and everything. I go, just give it time. Be there for her. Tell her how much you love her. Tell her, hey, I understand. And this is what we need to be smart. I said, but about somewhere around 18, she comes back from the dark side, and she'll actually at some point tell you, hey, I want to tell you, I'm sorry, you were right. And it's tough. It is tough because you only want the best for them, and you're going to see them making mistakes, but they're going to have to learn from those mistakes. And that's what life's about.
Yeah, I'm bracing for impact for that. Right now, she's hoping to see the elf on the shelf around the house soon. So I'm holding on right now for those moments. Well, listen, obviously you've had a lot of success throughout your career. I know you're doing the color commentating for Bellator right now. What other kind of goals or plans do you have for the future? What's coming up next for you?
You know what? Honestly, as far as, work-related stuff, I love what I'm doing, and I'm very happy with that. But I actually went and I bought a farm with my daughter. And she's very big into being self-sustaining and to be able to doing what's called community-based farming, where she sells her produce and everything to, the neighborhood and to restaurants and things like that. So they get organic stuff. And I'm having a blast with it. I've done more stuff as far as, plowing fields and doing things that I never thought I would be doing. And I love going to her farm. I love working on it. So, that's where my attention is. I do the fighting. And then when I get done with all that, I go to the farm and I kind of ride on a tractor by myself, and I really enjoy it. So that's what I'm looking at.
Wow, that's so cool. All right. Last thing I want to hit you with here. I'd love to ask all the dads that I get on the podcast, what type of advice do you have for that new dad or for that about to be father who's out there listening?
The best advice I could give you is, hey, be patient, and always let your kids know how much you love them. Let them know, even when they screw up, say, hey, I didn't like what you did, but, grab them, bring them in close and give them a hug and say, but I love you. And I just expect better of you. I expect more of you because of who you are. You're a good person. And just let them know that you're always there for them. And if there's anybody that they can contact when bad things happen or good things, you're the person that's there.
Yeah, very well said. I love the message. This has been a lot of fun for me. I got to say, Big John McCarthy, you're a first-class father all the way, and thank you so much for giving me a few minutes of your time here on First Class Fatherhood.
It is my pleasure. You take care, sir.